What you know about Rasta?
Yeah, man. Tell him to skip.
You know your Bible?
I know Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But music is my passion, Bob.
For we, the music and the message are the same thing. Can't separate.
Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin Lundberg. I'm here with Bex Camerata. You know her best. It's my number one right hand. We could not be more excited this week. Oh, my God. So many things to report. First thing, we are a Webby honoree.
Yes.
Guys, we're so proud. Thank you for listening. This really means a lot. I guess it's sort of like the, Oscars of the podcast world.
The podcast world,
yeah,
right?
So this is such a major honor. Next year, who knows what will happen. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we are about to interview one of our besties, Ray Marcus Green. We love him
one of our
so
favorite
much.
people.
Oh my God, you guys.
World.
He is the best. He is an amazing writer and director. He just finished One Love, the Bob Marley movie, which we saw and loved, and we're about to go do a deep dive into the film. And I think it was a real juggling act for Ray, because it's not every day that you have to make a biopic with the family so deeply involved. And so Ziggy Marley is a producer on this, and I think Ray handled it beautifully, and I'm so excited to do a deep dive into how he got it done, because he really did it beautifully. So Bex, let's get going.
Do it.
Ray Marcus Green, we worked on a film called Joe Bell that starred Mark Wahlberg. The tales we could tell, which we will probably get into a little bit.
Good Joe Bell. Let's start with that. Good Joe
Okay,
Bell.
it was Good Joe Bell. This is going to be the big story of the internet. The movie was called Good Joe Bell, and then it changed to Joe Bell in the 11th hour. But it was like a tale of us and Mark Wahlberg and private planes and just hilarious highs and lows. And ultimately, I have like such affection in my heart for that whole experience, I have to say.
1,000%. And it's so great to see you both. I loved working with you, and we had so much fun on that film, despite any craziness that might have ensued. It was a great experience.
It really was. But Ray, you were just saying that Wahlberg FaceTimed you yesterday after not having spoken to him for a while, right?
It was amazing. Like, I just got a missed call from Mark, and I was sitting, it was spring break with the kids, and I had two kids around me, and I call him back, and he's like, "Man, loved your movie." It's kind of amazing. Mark called me, told me he saw One Love. He didn't tell me where he saw it, but he just said he saw it. He said it was even better than King Richard, and he was like, "This is all you." And he just was very complimentary of the movie, and we can work together again. It was just great.
I love that. I love that so much. My memory of Mark is that like he is a big FaceTimer, and he doesn't just call, he FaceTimes. He wants to see your face, and he wants you to see his face, right? And he would just FaceTime you at all hours of the day.
Whenever, and he's reachable. Like, other than the hours that he sleeps, which are not human hours. He sleeps.
That's right.
He's not on anybody else's schedule. So I remember, I think he answered dentist chair. He answered on a massage table. It was kind of amazing. Like, wait, he's literally like his face through the hole on the table, and you can see Mark. It's like, how are you not taking a break? He's just able to talk about film at any point in his life. And he was committed to that role. Like, that's what I have to say, like, tip my cap to that, because he just was committed. He was committed to the role.
Okay, we could talk Wahlberg all day, but we're here to talk One Love. Tell me the first memory and where you got the idea.
So the first memory, I was editing King Richard, and I got just a cold email, subject line, Bob Marley. And then it was, sort of a typical submission for consideration kind of email.
From like your agent or cold to you?
I don't think it was from my agent. I think it came in directly from the producer of the film, who had, I guess it would work with George Tillman Jr. for many years. They have a company together. Oftentimes I'll get these submissions, not know how real they are.
Yeah.
And so I was a little skeptical, of the project from Jump Street, just because I didn't know who he was. And I notes and a phone call and a script is attached. So I just said, okay, well, let me just do some digging here, forward it to
Craig Castell. We got to give him a shout out. We love him so much.
Craig Castell, the best agent in the business. Love him. And it's hilarious because the first thing he says to me is like, right, look, I might be the only person in the world that doesn't like Bob Marley music. So, like, do whatever you want, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, Craig, this isn't helpful. Love you. The first thing I did was just try to figure out, like, look, did they have the rights? I'm not going to get invested in this at all.
You mean life and music rights or both?
Music rights in particular, which I'm assuming came with the life rights. So it was like, I need the music. And I just didn't want to be a part of a project where we didn't have the music. And I was like, that's like essentially number one. They did, apparently. And now they did, and I put this in quotes, which people can't hear because, as you know, everything is real until you see it. And so I think there was this, we have it, but we don't know what it is. So it lived in this, like, we don't know what rights, we don't know, but we have some rights. And I think a week later, I remember having the first call with Robert Teitel, the producer of the film. I didn't read the script that was in the inbox, but I just said, let me have this phone call first and figure out, like, what they really want to do. Why are they coming to me? And on that call was Ziggy Marley. So it was Bob Teitel and Ziggy. So on the very first call, Ziggy, so I'm thinking, okay, well, the family's obviously definitely involved because he's there on the first call. And again, we didn't get into the specifics of the rights or anything like that. It was, it was really like a director meeting and them getting to know me.
King Richard hadn't come out yet.
It didn't, no.
Had they seen your other work? Like, were they sort of anticipating that King Richard was going to be really good? Like, this is a big deal. Like, the Marley movie is a big deal. Why do you think that they came to you?
It's a great question. I think there's, all filmmakers that we're all on a list, right? I don't know exactly where. I just know I'm not number one on that list. So I just know, like, I don't know if I'm like 10 or 15 or 20. I'm not number one, which is fine. But I'm definitely like a starting 5. Number-wise, change.
Yep.
Yeah, like every year USC is number 1, and then it changes to NYU, and then it changes to... It's one of those. It's a constantly evolving list where our numbers fluctuate.
No, Ray, I do have to say it's actually really interesting to hear it from a director's perspective, because from the producer's perspective, every time we have a movie that we're ready to look for a director on, we gather those lists from all the different agencies, then we reorganize those lists into our specific list for this film. And it is, okay, you just go down the list that you've organized.
Well, I would say probably in terms of biopics, I might be number 1. Like, you give a biopic, Ray Green's going 1 right now. Yeah. Although I'm not sure I want to be on that list anymore. I'm not like, I don't want to take me off the list, but I certainly want to drop.
Maybe you just want to take a break from that list. You know what I mean? Like, I think
take a break. Just put me on another list. Just put me on another list right now. Just put me on another list. Any list. I don't care what it is.
I don't think people know how funny you are, Ray, because your material tends to be pretty dramatic. But like, you're one of the funniest dudes around. Okay. So we just got to remind ourselves of that, Bex.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
I'm actually writing a comedy right now.
Stop.
Let's see. Yes, I'm finally getting back to my roots.
Okay, circle back. So you take this meeting with Ziggy.
I take this meeting. It's kind of in the look, I'm in a slightly high leverage position because I know what the film has scored for King Richard. So we had tests. I know what I have. Now, they don't know what I have, but the rumor mill in Hollywood is real. And we had a very, very high score for King Richard previews. So high that I was like, I'm the man. Like, for like a little while, like just to myself, I was like, whoa, what? I don't think I ever scored that high on like any exam in my life. So for me, this is like some get out of jail free card. I'm going into every meeting like, I got Will Smith, Venus, Serena, Beyonce, and a high score. Like, I'm feeling pretty good.
You have a full house.
I got a full house,
and
no one knows it yet because it's not out to market. Now, the world was still, obviously we thought we were going to die every second. It was COVID. I mean, it was bad. I don't remember what shot we were on at that point.
Yeah.
There was no cinemas. Everything was day and date. So the world was, let's not forget, was definitely in a very precarious place. But I figured at the time that I was able to make another movie, I would be in an advantageous position. So I certainly was using that to my advantage in those early meetings to essentially develop the team that I wanted. I said, look, without even reading the script, I knew I wanted to bring on a co-writer. That was Zach Balin, who had written King Richard. I knew I was going to, have Robert Elswit shoot it. I knew I was going to have Pam Martin edit it. So it was like, look, you're coming with the dream team, take it or leave it. And I think they were very, very like, I don't know, maybe I had the juice, so to speak, at that point. So I was speaking confidently and all of that.
I really believe that thing, when it rains, it pours, and you're like feeling it, and then people want to go with you and feel it with you. And that's how stuff happens. So keep going. I love it. Love this story.
So I definitely had that energy, and I think they were just all on board. Like, all right, who is this kid? He hasn't really proven that much, but he seems to think he has. So let's just kind of go with it. Then I think it was a meeting a couple of weeks later, a week later with the studio. But at that point, they were going to engage in a deal. And I think it took like a while for the deal to finally come through and the terms to come together.
So it was a Paramount project, Ray?
It was set up at Paramount.
Okay.
And during that period of time where they were figuring it out and my deal was kind of coming together, I got an opportunity to do a TV show. It was tricky because Paramount was really like pushing this project and like wanted to go. Now, when I finally got around to reading the script, I was like, this can't happen right now in my mind. And I'm just thinking, look, there's a lot of good stuff about it, but this is nowhere near where it needs to be.
Right.
And my team wasn't ready. So I was like, look, and I had this sort of gift toss in the mouth. I get basically a call from David Simon and George Pelicanos, and they want me to direct a 6-part limited series, which was ready to go at HBO.
Crazy.
They wanted one person for the whole series.
Like The Wire defined our generation, and those guys called you and they're like, we want you to direct this HBO miniseries.
Yes. And however that happened, or whatever list I was on, I was like, man, but that was going to take me out for 6 to 8 months, which was not what Paramount wanted to hear at the time. I respect that. But at the same time, I was like, well, that's actually the amount of time I need to get this script right. So if I have a co-writer and I can oversee that process, weekends, nights, however I can do it, at least I can buy myself a buffer, make sure the script gets right. And that's what I did. So I think there was a little bit of a dust up at the studio about me engaging in another project, essentially after I had taken one. But I said to them very early on, I was very transparent. The script wasn't ready. We needed time to get it right. And I'm not shooting it this fall. So that's not going to happen. And I knew if I just deliver a good enough script at the end of this, then everything will be fine. And that's what we did. And so during the making of the show, I had Zach come on. We did a lot of research together. He put together the skeleton of the first draft. Then I put together a draft of his draft. And then we co-wrote the draft that we submitted to Paramount. They were over the moon. And then at that point, it was, we were still looking for our lead actor.
That must have been so hard.
It felt impossible. It did feel like it wasn't going to happen at some point. I just, I said, well, at least we have a decent script. And it wasn't perfect, but it was like, we have a decent script and no actor. We did a hard part of the job. The other part is finding someone.
Yeah.
Even when I was making the show, the casting process was open. So we were looking for a year.
So you had people on tape. You were meeting people.
There were a couple of names, but like a lot of those names, even just like not possible. Great actors. I mean, like, look, Lakeith Stanfield is a great actor. He doesn't look anything like Bob Marley. Like, I don't know how you do that. Even if Lakeith wants to do it, I don't understand, because there's not enough attribute.
No resemblance.
There's no resemblance. Like, we're not trying to do a one-to-one here, but we need something that looks right. So I'm using Lakeith as an example, but there were many other folks in his, sort of, caliber of actor that just didn't resemble at all, that couldn't do it. And so I tried a couple of family members that might have been in the right age range, and it just didn't really hit. And finally, it was so deep into the process of like, I think the studio was running out of patience and or money to like go at this.
Did they want you to settle, Ray? Were they just like, choose someone?
I think they agreed that he hadn't been found, but I still think there was probably more of a settle mentality on that part. And that was driven by the rights, the music rights. I didn't know this at the time, but the rights were going to lapse at some point. Ooh. And I guess, I don't know if it was a 3-year contract or 5, however long it took them to make this movie, that at some point these rights were up at like the end of the year, something.
So unless you were in production by a certain date, they were going to lose the rights altogether. They were going to lose the rights
altogether.
Oh God.
What is your name, young lion?
My mother name is Nesta, sir. But sometimes them call me Robbie.
Nesta, the messenger. A man can't see the message unless him search.
Daddy, why the man them shoot up the place?
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the thing. Cause every little thing gonna be alright.
Ray, I have a question. In the script process and in the casting process, in this phase, did you already have a sense of what your vision was for how to incorporate the music, or were you going to base that on what actor you found and how much of a musician they were?
So it was more based on the actor that I found, but I was simultaneously like calling anybody that I knew that had made a musical biopic and trying to ask how they did it. So I got in touch with Rami Malek, who was very, very generous, so sweet. I met Austin Butler on the awards circuit.
On the campaign trail.
And just try to ask how he did it and just try to ask as many questions as I could. Then there were musical supervisors. There were a couple of different approaches that we could have taken, but of course, I didn't know who we were going to have and what the level of musicality was going to be from our lead actor. And finally, the tape came in from this kid, Kingsley Ben-Adir. I call him a kid. He's a grown man. He's 37 now, maybe. But it was the first tape, honestly, that I didn't cringe. And I don't mean that disrespectfully at like the actors that submitted. They did the best they could. It's just Bob Marley. Like you know what I mean? Like the level was so
totally
high and different that it was an impossible task. That's like when you watch American Idol and you're like, oh, they can't hear themselves sing. But everybody thinks they can sing. I mean, that's reality. But it's like, no. Just because you can sing doesn't mean you're a singer. Like I had to realize that early. So I'm a great shower singer. I just can't sing in public.
So you get this tape. Are you like, this is the guy?
I'm like, this guy's interesting. Even if he's not Bob Marley. Like that's what I'm looking at this tape. I'm like, whoa, okay, he's mixed race, same skin complexion. Interesting. Now he's got short hair. He's got a very different physicality. I couldn't tell that from the tape, which I thought, okay, well, that's movie magic. But he didn't look slight. He's not a small man. So I thought, okay, you might have to drop a few. So I'm just like doing the mental math. Okay. But he's handsome. He's charismatic. He's got presence. And I thought most importantly, he was intelligent. Like the way he films himself in the tape. It wasn't 3 different sizes. He wasn't, he was just very confident. And the accent, he could have had me fooled. Like, I don't speak patois, but I was like, okay. So, of course, hey, Ziggy, watch this. Everybody on the team watch this. Everybody was like, they were like over the moon.
They were so psyched.
And I'm like very eager and leaning in, but there's like a lot of more steps in my mind that have to happen before you just cast someone. I'd like to meet the actor, and so that was the next step, get him out to LA. He was out here, and I just remember going like this, like standing up and going like that. I was like, oh, this dude's huge.
He's tall, and Bob Marley is not tall.
Yeah, I'm 6'1", but I was like gaining weight, so I was probably like hunched over a little bit. So I was like, ooh, let me lift up. And he was still like tall and big, like strong.
Yeah.
If this guy loses a lot of weight and we test him and figure it out. So I think there was a callback, read some scenes from the script, because we hadn't released the script. I think we hadn't released pages.
Okay. Okay.
And I was like, okay, so I'm leaning in more. I'm like, look, there's no close second at this point. Now he doesn't
Right.
know this. He's sweating it out. These guys don't like me. Probably
Sure.
F you to the whole thing. Like, I don't know. I'm getting no responses. It just took a while to get everything together, a slow studio, whatever it was.
And Ray, we had read that he had done a lot of work on that accent before submitting tape. Like he like kind of went all in.
Oh yeah, it was intense and different, and we'll talk about that. But he did everything he needed to do to win the job. And we hadn't done the prosthetic test at this point. And so there were still like questions about the look and what's this going to be. I think in one of the first callbacks, they put together like a pseudo wig, and it was horrible. And like, I mean, it was laughable. It was to the point where it was like, did I just go to a Halloween costume store and buy one and put it on my actor's head? This
like
is
the wig with like a Rasta hat that you just like place on top. Like it was
a little bit like that. And apparently they spent some money on it. I think it was like,
stop.
I heard $20K. I don't know what it was. But
No,
it
Ray.
was not cheap. But I was like, if this costs $20K and it looks this bad, like I literally was like, I probably could have done this with paper mache in my backyard. This is not good. No offense to anybody, but it was not great. And so I'm thinking, okay, but he did the second read with this fake thing on. And so it was off. It wasn't him, it was us. But it was like, my heart's beating a little fast.
I'm sure this is like so much responsibility and it's on your shoulders.
It's not looking great.
And Ray, it feels like you're dealing with the family. Like, how are you navigating all these waters? One thing I will say about you as a filmmaker is you are also a producer, truly. This feels like a lot. This feels like a lot on your shoulders. And it's not like you're hiring a seasoned star to play Marley. You're hiring someone new who's probably incredibly nervous.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so can you just talk about how did you do it? Like, how did you do it emotionally?
So Plan B wasn't on at this point. It was Robert Title from the very beginning. And I'm like new kid on the block.
Yep.
Very different schools of thought. So early on, we might have hit a couple of bumps just in terms of like communication, like old school manager versus like analytics or whatever. I don't know what the analogy is, but we were a little bit on different, like, I don't want to make the script that you have. We have to do this. So there was just a little bit of like positioning on the team, but like at least the old school mentality was like, we can get through these bumps. I'm a professional and we're going to love each other, but we need some more support. So I think early on, it was just kind of figuring out what the team was going to be. And that's how Plan B kind of came into the fold. Was we felt that there needed some more production support, at least from a script development standpoint, and just overall research. It's a big job. It's music rights. It's
insane.
It's
crazy.
huge. There's no like shame in needing an offensive coordinator. Like football coaches, it's not just them, right? You have your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator, you have your quarterback coach. Like we needed more teammates. And so that was part of like, okay, let's slow this down. Let's make sure that we get the script right. Let's bring on some production support that can help guide the rest of the process together in conjunction, not like, and that's part of my job, was kind of essentially helping to fill the team out a bit more so that we can get the support that we needed, because we were also we were a US based production that was going to be set up in London and shooting in London and Jamaica. So we were just spread out. Like the studio was here, UK was there. They couldn't move until the US side moved. Everything just felt like if you needed an answer, it took a day and a half. It wasn't just the time difference. And so I think we were so spread out as a team, and it was just centralizing.
Yep.
But once we got Kingsley and once the things started to like fall into place, it was like, it started to feel like, okay, this thing is going to get real. It's getting real. It's getting real.
I don't think like the average person understands that so many movies are like that. They're just kind of like on the runway, and it's like, are we going to do them? Are we not? We're kind of putting them together. We're not. It seems like you kind of forced the hand a bit.
A little
but
bit.
They were with you.
They were with me, but then I was like, what are they? And it was this weird like moment of like, okay, you have to think like a studio, right? Like, yes, they sunk money into it, but we can cut our losses right now.
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure many studios have done that before.
Yes.
13 million is a lot cheaper than 80. It ain't a go until it's a go. And this is the first time I've ever heard soft green light before.
Okay.
When I'm driving, I'm not like, you know what? This is a soft green light. I'm going to go now. Studios do this. They save the money. It's like, wait, the money's either in the account.
Yeah.
I can't, like, it's not a credit card.
That's right.
It's not a credit card. It's not coming back.
So how do you get to day one?
It was the first time where I'm like, I'm going to be that annoying kid in the front of the class, sitting up with my hand. Kind of gotten to that point in my career where I felt comfortable to do that. Like, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm like, what was that scene in Big where like Tom Hanks is just like in the meeting? Hello, that's me, guys. Yeah, he's like raising his hand.
He's in the toy meeting and he keeps fucking
and he's
annoying.
Just being annoying and shit. I'm like, hello, I'm going to be the guy that says it. Hello, we don't have this. We don't have
I don't
this.
get
we
it.
don't have this. We don't have this.
I don't
so
get
I
it.
was like, I was this guy for like 6 months to the point where I'm like,
oh my God.
They're either going to fire me or they love me because I'm going to get it done. Because I had also committed myself to doing it. Like there was a point where I also committed. Once Kingsley was the guy, I'm committed to him. He needs to know if he's going to be, I don't know, the equivalent of our LeBron James. Like he's got a team here, but it was still like being honest and transparent with him. Like, look, this is a moving target. And that's a tricky thing. As the director, you want to be like, everything's great and everything's perfect. And just trust me. And it's like, yeah, trust me, but I don't know when we're shooting.
Yeah.
So there was a bit of like, look, I'm asking you to trust me based on my last movie. Look at what happened with Will Smith. Trust me, we will get there.
And by the way, that works. If you've got like a track record, it works a lot better than when you don't.
But it also could add some pressure of Will Smith is Will Smith. Will Smith is a producer. Will Smith was great even before Ray Green. It's tricky. It's tricky. I think it definitely bought something, but it certainly like was not everything.
Yeah.
I knew he was losing weight. I knew he was learning guitar. I knew he was taking lessons, and we would check in. I hit him on a WhatsApp and just check in every week or every week and a half or every 2 weeks and just like, how's it going over there? Cool. Everything was.
Yeah. He's getting ready. He's doing his part.
But I'm also giving him the real, like, we don't have a crew yet. We don't have this. Like, hang in there.
Yeah.
Hang in there. Because I don't want you to feel like I don't want you to get ready too soon was my feeling. Like, there is a period of like fighter weight, right? And you can't like peak too soon as a fighter. Like there's a point where I'm going to need you to go all the way in. Now's not that point.
It's so funny you say that, Ray, because I think we've worked with a lot of actors who have transformed physically and have heard of a lot of our friends working with actors who transform physically. And especially when you're losing weight, you don't realize like they're hangry all the time.
All the time.
And so it's not even their real personalities. It's just like they're these people, but they're 30 pounds lighter and they're asshole. I mean, you know what I mean? Like they're just not going to be themselves. And they have to live like that for 6 months or whatever it is.
1,000%. I mean, just look, you had children. You know what it's like not sleeping. And I can only imagine that you might have felt like another person.
Some good loving.
So how do we get there? How do we get to the hard green light?
I had my crew. I came back and said, hey, studio, you're not waiting on me anymore. Have a line producer. I've got our crew. I did everything I can to get it to this point.
I've got everything I need. Yep.
Now what?
Yeah.
Now it's your move kind of thing. We fell in victim of the Bohemian Rhapsody sort of financing model because that movie made X and it was made on a certain budget. And look, I get it. They're a studio. They want to save money. They're like, well, that movie was made for this. Your movie has to be made for that. And it's like, well, there's like 3 black people for every white person in your movie. I don't know what we're talking. Like there's 3 Jamaican. There's literally 3 for 1. We can't do 3. We can't hire.
Right.
We're shooting in Jamaica. What are we talking? There was a certain point where I was like, it doesn't actually make sense. We can't do it for the same price. It's not possible. Bohemian Rhapsody didn't shoot in a foreign country with no tax credit. It cannot be made for the same amount of money.
How many days did you have to shoot ultimately?
I want to say 50, 62, 52, something in there. I forgot. It just, it was so long. I hate to say that because I love making movies. I really do. But it felt long.
Oh my God.
I had blood, like literal blood, sweat, and tears every day. No, that's someone else's blood today. That's not my blood. It's not my blood.
But Ray, once you got into the shoot, why else was it so torturous?
It wasn't that it was torturous. It was just intense. Like there were some great days, there were great days. And like, look, at the end of the day, I think sometimes, let's call it out of the 60 days, let's just round up.
Yeah.
45 of them were awesome. It wasn't one particular thing. We had great crews. Because of the language of the film, that was the biggest challenge, not just for Kingsley and I, but for the film itself. We were shooting a foreign language film. If Kingsley was Jamaican, it might have felt like a breeze. He's not. And so it's not like I can say it to him and then he can translate it into Patois. Like every other crew member, I could say something in English. They can, because they speak Patois, just turn it into Patois and say it however they would say it. It didn't happen that way. So I think that's where, if we had any bumps, primarily were driven out of, because I don't speak Patois. I speak English. I'm writing a script in English, having it translated into Patois, but that's generic Patois. Then it has to get translated into Bob-specific Patois from that Patois. And then it has to get transcribed phonetically.
Holy.
You can just imagine. Wow. It was torture.
Is Ziggy helping? Is there a dialect coach?
Ziggy was super helpful. I mean, honestly, so we had everybody. You had every team member you could imagine. We had sort of a professor of language from an institute in Jamaica who did sort of the higher level translation of our English. So he broke it into historically accurate Jamaican patois. Then there was Ziggy's participation, which, yes, he was helpful in story and character and that stuff, but he was also helpful into translating Bob's speak, because Bob didn't really speak like any other Jamaican. He was kind of his own thing, the way he put words and the way, and he was also from the street. So there was like the urban element. It was just different. And so it was great to have Ziggy there because you could feel very confident in that. And Kingsley could feel very confident having someone who understood the language.
Yeah.
There's no middleman. I could just talk to the source, so to speak.
And you probably had an entirely English speaking crew mostly, right?
So our crew was English speaking. The great thing about what we were able to accomplish, and I will take some credit, was surrounding Kingsley essentially with a fully Jamaican cast. Those were real musicians who played the bass, who played the electric guitar, who played the drums. All the singers, the I3s, were real singers. Lashana herself was a singer before she was an actress. And she's Jamaican. So like everyone else had this sort of, we could support him. He had Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen, so to speak. He had players to pass to because they understood the language, and they can help guide the patois process a little bit. So he can also count on them as resources within a scene.
I read this thing that he spoke to someone in Jamaica at, one of the screenings or something. And she's like, that was a B plus. And he was like, so happy that that someone was like, oh, it's B plus.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in Jamaica, they don't give A's. I remember we had a guy named Neville Garrett he was depicted in the film, but he was our consulting producer on the film. And he was in the room with Bob. He was Bob's artistic director, so all the lighting for the shows. He drew the album art. And I remember like, man, so how we doing? And he was like, a B plus. And I was like, B plus? We haven't even finished shooting yet. Like, and he was like, hey, man, I can't give you an A, man. I can't give you an A, man. Like, what do you mean you can't give me an A? Like, wait, so the B plus is the highest I can get?
I need an A right now, man.
It's like,
oh my God,
like, no
so awesome.
prize for a B plus.
Okay, so Ray, let's jump ahead to post. Was that a bit of a thing? Like, it feels like you were dealing with a lot of material, a lot of footage, a lot of performance. How was it?
Look, I would say I was insulated for a good amount of post. Meaning it was myself and my editor, and I really forced that hand almost to the point of I'm like reading the fine print in my contract. And more so, you know me as I'm very collaborative. It just was, I can't collaborate yet. That's like you're asking me to like interpret my dreams while I'm dreaming. Like, let me finish the dream, let me write it down, and then let me talk about it. I have to say it was very amicable once that process happened. There was a point where any edit that goes on too long can become sort of it's like people don't know what to do. So they start creating problems that aren't there kind of mentality. There's like it's like that feeling like I'm in the, I don't know how to describe that feeling of like, there's a reason why there's a 10-week edit, a 12-week edit. Like those benchmarks are there for a reason. You're not supposed to be in the edit for 29 weeks. There must be a problem, right? So even though there wasn't a problem, we were in writer's strike and we were in actor's strike. And so by virtue of nothing coming out and boredom, there were a lot more people that were involved than probably typically would have been involved at that point. Nobody wants to be disruptive. They just want to make their version of the movie. And it's important as a filmmaker to be like, that's a really smart idea. And that's one that's your opinion. Obama had a lot more influence than he did power. And I think ultimately you're it's not about final cut, but it is. It's like, who has the leverage in this relationship?
Yep.
The Marleys have the leverage. It's their movie. Yeah, even if the studio owns the film, like what if the Marleys don't come out and promote it? And so, I think where we landed, I'm very proud of the film, and it was a team effort.
You should be.
And I think they definitely gave some thoughts that made the movie better, and they came from everywhere.
I will say that, like, you never know which way these things are going to go. You never know. And we've had a lot of like big swing films just totally sink at the box office. And I think that this movie surpassed expectations and was a tremendous hit. And I just want to know from your perspective, you must have felt so vindicated and like continue to feel that way. But just talk about the release of the film and your feelings and like how the last few months have been for you.
Yeah, look, it was a tough shoot. It was a long edit, but like, I think all along I was proud of the movie. Early in my career, I was very sensitive. Look, we're all sensitive. It's not like I'm a little less sensitive. Or I would say the tolerance is higher. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I'm not throwing my glove and bat anymore. Early in the league, I swing, I strike out, like, right? I'm the player who cares so much, I have to throw my helmet, right? I have to show everybody how much I care. Versus like, okay, there's a lot of power and restraint, And I think part of becoming a filmmaker is like, you're not going to win them all. You're not going to make everybody happy. You're doing the best you can. And so I think I was preparing myself for that feeling, regardless of the win or loss of the film. And in film terms, what is that, right? Like, no one tells me what's a successful movie, like there's no like the movie has to make X for this to be success. Like nobody had that conversation with me. So I didn't know what the number was. I just started getting texts from like heads of studios, like, really well done. I was like, oh, we must be doing good. Look, I'm not on social media, so I don't read the play-by-play. I was like, look, I think my benchmarks were I'm gonna go to Jamaica, and I know if they accept this movie that we have a decent chance of doing something pretty good. And I felt like we went to Jamaica and I felt like I could, for the first time, sigh relief. Like I felt like the people of Jamaica just really respected the movie. And I know that there was early chatter. He's not Jamaican. We're not sure. Like there was just like a lot of skepticism, and rightfully so. Like, you're making Bob Marley. You're like, so he's one of my favorite musicians. Like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
And I feel that for myself. Like, who do I think I am to make this? I don't know. It just happened. Okay. Like I love Bob. And we're going to make the movie with it, without me. It was a great chance. I tried to do the best I could to put myself in the best position to try to succeed.
I love it.
So I think I was very aware that certain elements of like were happening, but once like opening weekend happened, it definitely was a sigh of relief. They said it was the biggest movie in Valentine's history. And more than that was that the audiences were responding to the film. Like that was the thing. We had a very, very high audience score and cinema score. But I asked to be taken off all breaks. I don't look at breaks.
So smart, Ray.
I don't even have WhatsApp. So I don't.
Wow.
I'm off the channels, so I definitely live a little bit in a secluded kind of mindset. And that's for better. I don't read the good reviews either.
And I feel like you are staying true to who you are, probably a little bit because of that, because it's we've all seen plenty of people who just, their egos inflate and deflate according to their like the latest and greatest, and you are just so true blue.
I'm trying, but it starts with working. Look, I have to say, like, I've been so lucky in my life, like literally, I'm an uncommon story, a failed baseball player, kindergarten school teacher, diversity and inclusion officer at AIG. Like none of it really makes sense,
That's
so
right.
Like, what? To like, like, what do you mean you worked at AIG at the height of the crash? Like, none of it really makes sense. And then I went into school not even wanting to direct and came out directing. So it all's like a bit of like, look, for whatever reason I'm here, I feel so blessed every day to do what we do. Like I genuinely feel that. So I hope I'm here to stay, that I'm making stuff that has meaning and value. That's what the whole point of this is. But more than anything, it's like I want to enjoy the experiences, at least the people that you're working with, because that's so much of what we do. You're having a baby, but you're not raising it. So you carry it and then it goes to college. You're like, what? I don't understand. So I don't like get to like hang out with it. It's just like, it's literally like, and you don't know if your kid's going to go to college and go off the rails, or like you don't know what it's going to do. That's kind of like filmmaking.
And Ray, hopefully we finally paid off those student loans we always talked about.
Oh, they're done. I mean, I'm still targeting Amazon, but we're doing all right.
Loyal listeners, it would be like we would go show up on set and it would be like just paid off a little bit more of that student loan, and it was just like
I paid off my mom's mortgage.
Oh my God, Ray!
That was cool. And it was weird. Like she was obviously not asking. She didn't even know. It was one of those things where I was like, and I didn't grow up with my mom, but I just felt like it was something inside that I was like, I got to do this for whatever reason. And I want you to enjoy your retirement. Yeah. Like you shouldn't have to take your entire retirement to pay back a mortgage that you've been paying for 20 plus years. Like something's wrong with this picture, you know? So if I can make movies that allow me to do those kind of like little gestures in my life, I'll feel great.
You're the best. Freaking love you, man. Thanks for doing this. That was so fun.
Seriously, that was so much fun.
We love you so much.
I love you guys. Send me some swag. I want some.
We'll send you some swag. Wear a Stay Gold forever. Love you. Bye, Ray.
All right. Love you.
These songs of freedom is all I ever have. redemption songs.
Bex, how amazing is Ray Green?
I love him so much.
He's so funny and clever and sincere and thoughtful, and just like, it reminds me of what fun we had working with him.
I was just going to say that we just had the most fun with him on Joe Bell and / Good Joe Bell, which I love that he wanted to bring up the original
He
title.
wanted us to remember, yeah.
But he's such a wonderful guy, because I think he talked a little bit about it at the end, but he didn't start out as a filmmaker. He kind of came to this in a roundabout way. So he's just a normal guy who doesn't have, the ego that a lot of directors have. And he's just so chill and so fun. And I just really appreciate that about him. We love you, Ray.
We love you so much, Ray. I really think One Love was such an achievement. And I think it's one of these movies that's sort of a hidden achievement, because you don't even realize all the complexity that is being executed. It's like when we did that Little Mermaid episode, and it was like all the VFX CG work that had to go into making the live action Little Mermaid film work. And it's like, that movie got a little bit dinged because, it was such a obvious echo of the animated film. But I would say in this, he sort of alluded to the fact that the critics were a little bit tough on the film, even though audiences really, really loved it. And I was just like completely swept up in the authentic world that he was able to achieve, which is really difficult. And he made such a good point. Like, patois is a foreign language, and Ray was directing it, and Ben Kingsley Ben-Adir was the star, and neither of them knew the language. And I think like to achieve that effectively is a feat larger than we can even fathom, And so to compare it to Bohemian Rhapsody, it's like an unfair comparison. They accomplished so much, and audiences loved it. And, I think having the family on board, we really didn't even touch upon that because Ray is so wonderfully diplomatic, but that cannot have been easy. That cannot have been easy to do.
The pressure that he must have felt, we kind of got a sense of it a little bit, but we didn't really focus on that. But I was just thinking, like, the pressure that he and Kingsley must have felt to carry the legacy of that man and his music and what he's meant for Jamaica and the world. Like, and to do it in under really, really hard conditions, and neither of them speaking the language, like you were saying. And, the pressure that must have been wild. So on the one hand, having the family so involved was probably such a help. Yeah. But on the other hand, I think it would make me even more nervous to be like, oh my gosh, okay, well, Ziggy's going to be here. Ziggy's going to approve things. Ziggy's going to see all of this, going to see all of the mistakes that I make and all of this stuff,
I was reminded of the first time we offered Harriet to Casey Lemons. She did not want to do it. And I think she didn't want to do it because she did not want to take on the pressure of doing justice to such a significant figure. And I would say the same is probably true for Bob Marley, who is such a revered but complex figure.
Right.
I'm just so impressed with the filmmakers who are brave enough to do things like that, because your film becomes the thing that people know most. My kids, like, we all went to see the movie, and like they knew a couple of Bob Marley tunes, but they really didn't know anything about Bob Marley. And so Ray is now responsible for completely educating them. And so anyways, I love him so much. I'm so proud of him. I know you feel the same, and it's just incredible. I will say the one story we have to tell, Bex, from Joe Bell. You figure very significantly into this story. So Joe Bell was a movie that was based on a real life story of a father who chose to walk across the country in remembrance of his teenage son who had committed suicide. And it was a true story, and we were very close. We had become very close with the family. We had gotten the life rights. We had become close with Lola Bell, who was the widow of Joe Bell. And Mark Wahlberg had come on to star and produce in the film with us. And so Mark really felt it was essential that he go up to Oregon, where the story starts and where Jaden and Lola and Joe had lived, and go meet the family. But it's not like the run and gun version of that. It's like, we're going to go on Mark's plane. We're going to land on an airstrip, and we're going to have to create an environment that is adequate for Mark and his entire entourage.
Oh my gosh. I remember this so
So
well.
there ends up being one day that seems to be like clear for Mark's schedule. So how much planning did we do in advance of this?
For this one day? Oh my gosh. I did nothing else.
But Bex, tell the hook of it all. It was Super Bowl Sunday that we had to fly.
So it was Super Bowl Sunday, and Mark is a very big sports fan, as we all know.
Huge Patriots fan.
So Patriots were playing, and the only acceptable hotel kind of place to stay in this small town for Mark Wahlberg was this brand new
charming
bed and breakfast.
Very
charming bed and breakfast, which we later found out was like the old meth house in the town that they recently refurbished into.
They did a great job.
It's very charming.
Charming is AKA, i.e., no televisions. Okay, there are no televisions or cable.
Yes.
In this facility.
So there were only 5 rooms in this whole place, in this bed and breakfast. And so all of those 5 rooms went to Mark and his entourage.
We stayed in an Airbnb like 3 miles away. Okay.
Right. So we're there for 24 hours, but of course Mark has to bring all of these people with him. And so, yeah, Daniela and I are like in this like random person's house in this town. Anyway, no pressure. So I was basically buy out this bed and breakfast. I call and I'm like, hey, I didn't want to say who it was, but there's a very big name actor coming to stay. What's the TV situation in the rooms? And they're like, oh, we don't have TVs in the rooms. So, okay, do you have a TV in the whole place at all? She's like, we have one small one, kind of like behind the bar. I don't even know if we have cable on it. Like, I don't know. We never use it. I'm like, okay. So we had to arrange for someone from the bed and breakfast. I ordered a TV from Best Buy.
Which was 40, 50 miles away.
Yes. And someone from the bed and breakfast had to go and pick up the order and drive the TV back. And then they had to install the TV in Mark's room so that he could watch the game. Again, thank you to them because they didn't even know who was coming. Like, I just had to be like, you guys have to trust me. It's
it's someone who you know.
You'll be blown away once you find out who it is. And they were blown away once they found out who it was. But they went, they got this
They
TV,
were the best.
They hooked it up.
They were the best. So Mark and his entire entourage then had to squeeze into the one bedroom
and
hotel room. And there was like only one chair. And so like the whole thing was like not set up for a Super Bowl party.
And I do have to say, he was such a good sport about the whole TV game thing. He was totally down.
He's totally just like down. He's a really good, legitimate producer. I was very, very impressed with him that weekend. But the initial part was that like we all show up to the like Glendale airport or whatever. And Ray is like, guys, I've never been on a private plane. And I'm like, Ray, join the club. Okay. Just act cool. And he like shows up and he's like in his leather jacket and his like, sneakers. And Mark proceeds to like break out like really good wine. You remember that?
That wine was so good.
And we were like, this is great. This is the life. We'll never live this again. It's a moment in time. It's a moment in time. Anyways, we love you, Ray Green, so much. Bex, I love you. That was a great one. Guys, we're Webby honorees. I mean, I just can't tell you how proud I am of this team. Andrew, Josh, you, Bex, Vanessa, Rach, I know you're listening. Oh my gosh. We're just pushing it up a hill, learning so much. And don't forget to follow, guys. We love you so much. And don't forget to tell us about, movies you want us to explore. This is so fun. We love you.
And stay gold.
Stay gold.